In today's video, we're going to be talking about overlanding with cats.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to Freely Roaming. My name is Dan.
And my name is Marlene.
Today, we're going to talk to you guys all about how to overland travel with cats. This is something we've been doing for 14 of the last 16 years of being on the road. And altogether, we started out with our cat that was already relatively older, and she lived on the road with us. And then for 2 years, we didn't have any cats. And then we rescued 2 strays in Europe, and we've been living with them for the last 2.5 years or so. So we always get questions about what's it like to travel with cats? Can we travel with cats? Is it okay to let them roam? How do you deal with them being on the leash and stuff like that?
How do they come back?
How do they come back, right? And where do you put the litter box?
Yeah, lots of questions.
So we're making this video today to tell you guys everything we know about it. It's going to be a long one.
Like you said, a lot of experience from a house cat to a camper cat, and then 2 feral cats into a van cat. So
Indoor cats and outdoor cats.
Yeah.
I think we can make this video 5 minutes long if we just talk about indoor cats, because that's pretty straightforward. You would do everything you have in a house. You just
make it smaller.
Make it smaller, put it in the camper. As long as your cat is happy inside the camper, it should be good, which is basically what our first cat was. Our first cat was 6 when we first started traveling. She grew up inside the house with us in Southern California. We adopted her as a runt of a huge litter. This litter, I don't remember, it was like 10 plus cats.
What kind of memory do you have?
I have an image of our cat Yoda being the smallest of the litter and having like just an unimaginably huge number of kittens trying to feed on the mama underneath our friend's like back deck. My memory is of her trying to get to the food and couldn't get to it. So we weren't planning on getting a cat back then. In fact, our 2 cats that we have now, we weren't planning on getting them either. All 3 of these cats have just ended up with us more or less because they would have died otherwise.
We're suckers.
Yeah. So our first cat was Yoda. She lived with us in an Airstream trailer and then in a foil camper for 2 years. For a few months, she lived with us in our van. She passed away at the age of 16. She did make it to Europe, but just for a day. So she was already pretty ill with kidney failure. We were trying to get her healthy to travel, continue to travel. And it just didn't seem right to put her down because it was inconvenient.
Yeah.
So, we did what we could, but ultimately she couldn't hang on. But like I said, she was indoor only, exclusively. So all we had to do was set up a litter box. And she was happy just to be inside, look out the window. Occasionally, if we're staying someplace long enough, she'll stick her head out. Yeah. And there's been a couple of times where she actually go down the steps of the camper and go outside.
Big day.
And then any kind of loud noise or rustling in the bushes.
Yeah,
scurrying back into the camper.
Yeah. So
if that's the kind of cat you have, that's it.
It's easy.
Video over. There's also the litter box. You obviously have to have a litter box. And even with the litter box, there can be accidents, especially with an old cat or with a pissed off cat. Yeah. So you're going to have to kind of be aware of, signs of potential accidents that may happen even with a litter box. But for the most part, though, they find the litter box and they do really well. You just have to be mindful. You have to constantly keep an eye on it, make sure it's clean, scooped out, refreshed, and all that. Because, small space, just like anything else, you can have big problems really quick. Our 2 new cats, they're a little over 3 years old now, right? They were feral. We came across them at the little island stone house that we were staying at during the pandemic in Croatia back in 2020. There was a litter of 6 cats.
5 cats?
Well, 5 cats and the mama cat. And they just showed up out of nowhere. We had seen the mama cat before. And while we were there during the beginning of the pandemic, the mama cat was very skinny and little. We didn't think she'd just have babies. But she would come, she was very skittish. You can tell she was hungry. So we had a little like outdoor sort of barbecue stone hut thing that we would make a fire and cook in. And every time I'm cooking some meat in there, she'll come sneaking around the corner and look. And a couple weeks into our stay, these kittens showed up. Of the 5, 3 of them didn't make it. And these are the 2 that were left. And winter was coming. it got really cold, we let these 2 cats that were left stay inside the stone house with us. And also, we're trying to get them old enough to the point where we can get them fixed. One thing leads to another. We as a family decided to keep them because as we were leaving, we just didn't have it in us to leave them behind, knowing that all their siblings are gone. We turned them from feral cats into house cats. Because of their feral origin, they were not easily contained. They were not going to be happy to be indoor cats like our old cat Yoda was. Was a challenge. At the beginning, we didn't know this was going to work. We took a test trip. We knew that if this is going to work, we have to be able to let them go outside. We have to be able to let them feel comfortable. We have to let them know that the camper is the safe place to come back. And we want to go through a few things that we've done through trial and error to make that happen.
And on that test trip, big reason why we decided to keep the cats is something we didn't realize is while we were in the village and they were free, they would walk and follow me when I take like golden hour photo walks. And whenever I go, they would be right behind me. And we took a family walk. We told the cats to stay by the van and we tried to ditch them. But they went on a family walk with us. And I remember reading old blog posts that we like hid in bushes and they still found us. And then we
apparently they have more senses than just sight.
And they followed us on our family walk and we made it back to the van. And it was like, oh, that wasn't so hard.
Because I think they felt a sense of safety with us. In the village, there was also this other kind of big bully cat that would beat them up. As much as they ventured out on their own, before we decided to keep them, they would just disappear. At night, even though we had this stone house in the wintertime, it was uninsulated, and they used up a lot of electricity. We tried sleeping in there once for a month, and our electricity was like $1,000, 1,000 euros for a month. So we decided that was not worth it. We're going to sleep in the van. So we basically used that stone house as like a common room of a campground. So each night we would bring the cats into the van with us, which turned out to be a really great way to start training your cats to stay with you. Have them recognize the camper as home.
Yeah, so we moved the litter box in there. We moved their bedding in there. We only fed them, had their food in there, their wet food dinner in there. They had access to water, maybe kibble during the day. And then we slept in there. We put them in and we closed them in. And
they sleep at night.
Yeah.
Sometimes they want to go outside because as cats, they want to be out at night because that's easier for them to hunt. So what we did is we make sure that the cats knew that the camper was their home. One of the ways we've got them to come back is to not give them food, just laying out during the day.
I think it's going to be like a theme throughout this whole video is to be consistent and have a routine and not just train them, oh, I'm going to do this one day and then maybe 3 days later I remember to keep doing it. But we did it every night. And I think they're just like, oh, this is I'm on a schedule.
And that might be harder for people to do if you have a house cat and you live in a house and then from time to time you want to live in a camper and going back and forth. That could be challenging because it's going to be hard to build a routine for the camper. You still should give it a shot because I think as long as they know that this camper in this training process, as long as they know that is where they can be safe, they'll always come back to it when something doesn't feel right. And our cats do this now. Even if, we're out for a hike and we didn't want them to come with us and they're just out roaming around, sometimes we'll come back to them and they're like hiding under the car.
We're sitting on our stool by the sliding door.
Yeah, waiting to go inside.
Like, where'd you guys go?
Yeah, so that's because we did this with consistency. If you didn't think that letting them out roaming was a good idea, you can also try to leash train them. I think leash training is a topic that a lot of people asked. And if you ever see people walking around with a cat on a leash, it's always funny to others when they see it because, first of all, they don't like being on leashes, not like dogs. We never got our cat Yoda, the first one, to get leash trained, even though we did try. But I think we tried. We weren't consistent, but also I think because she was an indoor cat, she never roamed outside. She didn't understand why she was outside in the first place. And secondly, why is this thing attached to me?
Yeah, and these new feral cats I must try to go hunt something, and so I will tolerate this leash.
Yeah, and they didn't take to it right away either. It was about consistency.
Yeah, we weren't consistent in the beginning because we didn't need to have them on a leash. We were in Europe and there was no predators, and most of the time they were just free to roam wherever we were. But it's a good idea to have that because you never know when you need to put your cat on a leash.
Sometimes we have to do that because the time that we're doing this, almost at every place we stay, is the day that we're checking out of a campground or the day that we're departing from a boondocking place, but we got stuff to take care of in the morning or whatever, or packing up, because they're conditioned to wake up in the morning and want to go outside.
Yeah.
But if we just let them outside and roam for the day, they don't know that it's departure day. So they could be gone all day.
But I think they know it's departure day because I think they realize there's a little bit something different in our routine.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh,
At
I'm
some
going to
point
go
they
hide.
figure it out, but when they first wake up in the morning.
Yeah, they don't know. But as soon as we start shuffling our bags and stuff, then they start hiding. That's just what they do. That's their default. So we have to have them on leashes. And it was really hard in the beginning, just like with our house cat. She turned into a pancake and wouldn't move, wouldn't tolerate the leash or the harness at first. But it was baby steps. It was like put on the harness on these wild cats, which was a thing. And then I gave them their favorite treats. And then I would put it on while they were eating dinner. And then one time we had to run to like the vet with Toby or something, or we caught another cat that we needed to sterilize. And we ran out of the house to go take care of it really quick. And I forgot I left the harnesses on the cats. And when we came back a few hours later, they were just chilling. They didn't care. They were pancakes. So I think it was just a amount of time.
Again, it goes back to the consistency. Leash training is definitely possible. Leash training is something that you'll have to do whether or not you get your cat to do well off the leash, just free roam. And again, like we said earlier, we're going to talk about picking campgrounds, which determines whether or not free roaming is a possibility. Because if we're close to a busy street, we're going to have them on the leash.
Yeah.
If we are close to other animals, you know, we don't want them to kind of venture into somebody's backyard with a dangerous dog. We're going to have them on the leash.
Yeah.
So being able to have them leash trained, even if you're not walking with them on a leash, just for them to feel comfortable wearing a harness and on a leash is important.
Yeah, and we have two different cats with their siblings, but they're totally different personalities.
Yeah.
And the male, as soon as I take that harness and leash out, he gets so excited because he knows he's going to go outside, even though he'd rather be wild, but maybe he's
If you have a lot of experience with cats and other animals at all, you'll know that they're not all the same.
Yeah.
You know, it's not like, oh yeah, one thing works with all cats or one behavior is the same across all cats.
Right. So,
like one is much more into hunting, one is not.
Yeah.
You know, one is very food motivated, one is not.
Yeah.
Right? So in that range, that whole gamut is a huge range. You could go from, and compare that with our old cat Yoda. She's totally different from these two cats.
Yeah. So the male, as soon as he sees the harness and I shake the leash, he's like, I'm ready. Let's go. Put this on. He starts meowing. The female, she'll hide and just, no, I'm not going to go outside. I'm going to go lay down right here. Good luck putting this harness on. But it took her now, when I take it out, like I recently noticed, it took like a couple years. She's like, okay, let's go.
Yeah.
Like she's just finally giving in. It took a long time.
She had to figure out that you have to relent if you want to get something happening.
So it's possible.
On the same line of letting them free roam, we also have trackers on them. A couple of different types of trackers. Having trackers on them is in case that they don't come back when we need them to. Right? So we've also done some things to try to train them to recall. We use the clicker. We shake treat bags that they're familiar with to associate with food. Like we said, every cat is different. Toby, the boy cat, much more food motivated. We can shake a box of marbles and he'll come running.
Yeah, but she doesn't. So
she doesn't.
And we were kind of getting for recall training. It was like, twin, Toby, come on, who's hungry?
Are they gonna come?
No. And I was just so tired of hearing my voice when, especially the female, was not returning. And I was like, I'm annoyed with myself. So we bought a clicker. And so every time I fed them a treat or it was dinner time, I'd click. And so now if I'm in a crowded campground and I don't want to start screaming, that's a good choice to have because they can hear it. And then hopefully they'll recall.
We were fairly persistent at the beginning with training them using the clicker. We've fallen off that wagon. We could do a better job and do some more training. But now, you know, there's other tools that we can use to get them to come back. But even still till this day, if we forget, leash them up or tether them on with a harness on departure day, as recent as like a couple months ago, we had to stay extra at a campground because we couldn't find Toby. And often he's just 30 feet away. Yeah. Just hidden really well.
Right now we're in the jungles of Costa Rica and none of us wanted to walk through where he was sleeping according to where his tracker was showing. So we're like, oh, we're not in a hurry. We can stay another night. Recall
and tracker really goes along with each other because there's also this locator feature on all the trackers. You can make a sound. So if you know generally where they are, you can remotely trigger the sound so that you can locate them. But at the same time, you can use it to condition the cat to know that, oh, there's something wrong or they're looking for me. And it's worked.
Scares them.
Scares them. It's worked a couple of times where couple that with conditioning them to know that the camper is safe. When you trigger that beeping sound sometimes, they'll just come running back.
Yeah.
Doesn't always work,
No.
but it has worked for us a couple of times.
So let's break down the type of trackers that we have then. So we have experience with 3 different trackers. When we were in Europe during the pandemic, it was really hard to get things. So eventually, I think when we were in Portugal, we got Airtags for the cats. And there was no holder for it. We eventually got little silicone holders for it. And
Yeah,
so
people do use them on a regular basis, and these holders are designed to hold Airtags on collars.
The shipping and stuff at that time was a little crazy, so we took a piece of fabric and we sewed it into the air tag and then onto the collar, and that worked just fine.
The holding part worked fine, but the tracking part didn't really work.
Airtags were bad for our cats, especially since our cats are feral. They love us and they will snuggle with us, but if another human being is around, they will run away. So if they're lost or we want to find them and somebody, do you want to describe how the Airtags work?
Yeah, if you guys don't know, the way Airtags work is that they communicate with all the iOS devices that are near them. Maybe Mac OS too, but at least iOS, which means, and it communicates over low power Bluetooth. So that means you have to be within a certain distance from an iOS device. Mm-hmm. And that iOS device has GPS location. By this device knowing that there's a AirTag nearby, then it will anonymously communicate to the Apple servers that there's an AirTag with this serial number near this area. Yeah. With our cats, they weren't ever close enough to anybody with an iOS device.
They just run.
So the only way that we can find them is for us to physically get close enough to them with our iOS device. Yeah. Then they will pop up. So in one sense that it didn't work for us when they were out running around, but on the other hand, it did work for us to know that, oh, they're nearby.
Yeah,
that's the only thing that was that did anything for us.
Yeah, once in Portugal, some weird night, Twin never does this. She was out till 3 a.m. and we couldn't find her. We walked around and we had to give up at like 1 a.m. And then we woke up and
we went to bed.
We couldn't we had to close the door. And we
didn't really sleep that well.
No, but you checked the phone.
Well, at 3 a.m, I thought I heard something.
Yeah. And so you checked and it's like, oh, Twin's back.
Yeah, I opened the door. She just jumped right in. She was waiting outside.
She was so thirsty. So I don't know what happened. Something chased her. She just got lost.
Yeah.
So that was bad. So when we got back to the U.S., we did research and we wanted to get 2 different type of trackers. The first one is a radio tracker. So a lot of times we're camping in places with no cell data. And so we wanted a radio tracker, which uses like a little remote control. And it's kind of like playing the game of like hot and cold. It'll beep if you're going in the right direction, and the sound will trigger like beeping. And if it'll light up, you'll get more lights and louder sounds and closer together.
Kind of like that thing in Ghostbusters.
I guess like a metal detector.
It's like a metal detector without the long stick.
No Slimer.
It's also like the Ghostbuster thing where the lights blink when you point and something over here. You keep walking, and then the light flashes faster and the beep flashes louder. And then when you're really nearby, it's like beeping really strong.
It's just solid. And so it's pretty small, and it runs on battery, and battery lasts about a year for us, depending on how many times you try to find them. But that's on their everyday collars. I never take that off of them. It's just that easy.
And it's small.
It's
really very small.
Yeah.
So it's not a burden to have them wear it all the time. And it's also, what's nice about it is there's no monthly service.
Yeah. It's called Tabcat, and that's the one that we chose.
We knew that we wanted to get a Tabcat actually when we first started before we got the AirTag, but they were completely sold out everywhere. So they had some supply chain issues, I think, but I think that's resolved. And all this stuff, we'll put links to the description for you guys to go check out.
Okay, and then the other one we know we wanted for sure is a GPS tracker. And that is more accurate, and we can actually watch them live on a map and beep them and turn on the light. But that is a bigger... has a subscription fee. Yeah. Battery doesn't last as long. Yeah.
So it's not one that you're going to want to have on them probably all the time.
Yeah, it's one that for certain...
Kind of, you could.
Yeah, you could. But for us... we only use it on certain situations. Like if they're leashed up, they only have their little radio tracker everyday collar on.
Yeah.
I don't want to have an extra tracker on her. There's no reason. Yeah. They're not going to get out of their harnesses. It can happen, but it's not something I worry about. So if they're wild and free like they are right now, they have their tracker. I can take on my app and it'll tell me if they're close by in our Wi-Fi range or if they are a little bit further away, and then I can see exactly where they are and I can walk to them and find them.
And they've also kind of gamified, the tracking feature within the app.
Yeah.
So if there's other pets in the area using the same kind of tracker, they'll show you like, oh, this cat is the king of this area, queen of this area because it's the most active.
Yeah.
You know, so because we're in a lot of remote areas often, and in Central America, there's not a lot of cats that are pets. So, and also there's not as many people using Tractive.
Yeah.
Our cats are usually
They're top 10.
The top 10. But I would say the difference between the Tabcat and the Tractive, Tabcat is like a normal watch. Battery lasts forever, doesn't have a lot of features.
Yeah.
Tractive is like an Apple Watch.
Yeah.
It has a lot of features, has GPS, but it has to be charged every night.
Yeah.
So I think that's the comparison.
It's not every night. Now we have a mini that actually, if they're running it every day, I can last 4 or 5 days. If they're within our Wi-Fi home range. But if they go past that and the GPS is constantly tracking them, or I'm tracking them with the live feature, then it'll drain more. But
yeah, so if you have this on your, I mean, this works with dogs too. Any four-legged pet, I guess. If you were wearing this full time on them, you probably want to charge it every night.
Yeah.
But if you're using it just occasionally or only when they're out roaming, yeah, you can just charge it and then put it on them when they're out.
Yeah.
And then, you know, probably last 3 or 4 sessions. The other thing that we had to consider as far as having trackers on them and also just for safety reason is what kind of collars our cats wear. It has to be substantial enough to support, because right now we've got it so that both trackers, when they're using the Tractive, are on the same collar at the same time.
Yeah,
Before we had the separate collar, so we would switch.
I'd switch, but then, or sometimes I put 2 on them at the same time, just in case I didn't trust one versus the other at that moment, because I'm not really sure what a camping situation's like. But now I just put it all together, and they don't seem to complain about the weight. There's no like head.
Well, we have the Tractive Mini, so it's a little bit smaller, but it's still pretty substantial for you know, medium to small size cats.
Our cats are like 11 pounds.
For a dog, it's not even going to be a problem at all.
Yeah.
But for cats, for sure, get the Mini.
Yeah.
And the collars, the other thing about a collar is that if you have your cat roaming loose, they've got to have a breakaway collar because you don't want them to get hung up on branches or fences or stuff like that because that could be deadly.
Yeah.
Not just that they're hanging from the neck, it's also if they're running away from a predator.
Yeah.
Right, so they're now suddenly trapped. It's only happened once, I think, and it happened like a month ago where Toby was going through some bushes and the collar snagged on something and then it broke off. And he came back to the camper with no collar on.
Yeah.
Because we had the Tractive. No, we actually only had the Tabcat.
Yeah.
We only had the Tabcat on, but we were still able to find the collar and then retrieve it.
Yeah.
If you're worried about losing it because of a breakaway collar, turns out these trackers are good for finding collars too.
But in the past, I took like a rubber band, like one of those little skinny ties that you buy, whatever, the hair supply area. And I would make like a little loop. So if the breakaway collar did unsnap,
it would just become looser,
but it would still stay together. So to give it a second life.
Yeah. So if they really needed to get out of it, they can still pull out.
Yeah.
But if it just got snagged on something, unbuckled, but they were able to just walk away fine, it would just kind of hang around their neck until we
because you know
until we got there.
Sometimes those breakaway collars need a lot of pressure and some of them don't, so you don't know what kind of collar. But these new collars that we have, they don't really break away that easy, so I don't have a hair tie on them. But the ones in Europe, I did put a hair tie on. Another thing on top of leash training is backpack training.
Like a soft crate.
Like a soft crate. It collapses. It takes up a little bit of room in the camper, but since it collapses, it's not really a big deal.
It's just like a little squished down duffel bag, when it's stored. So it's not a big deal.
And so in the beginning, we really didn't train them too much. Just when we take them to vet offices or we're boarding on an airplane or a ferry and we can't leave them in our camper. They're really scared of these backpacks in the beginning. But once we took them to the vet and it was scary to be next to the vet, they would rather be in the backpacks. So they eventually got used to it, or just they're not used to it. They kind of tolerate it.
Yeah.
But nowadays, they're
not trying to bust out like they used to, or at least one of our cats. We always try to find a hole, squeeze through
the zipper, and then move
try
the
to
zipper.
Get. He did get out once, I think, or in the early days, but he doesn't anymore.
And so it's really important that you have this because you never know when you need to run to the vet or fly, or even these days it's too hot to leave the cats in the camper. Especially since
at the grocery store, if everybody wants to go in.
And we can't leave the car on running with just the cats in the car. So we put them in backpacks and we put them in shopping carts. And we just we don't make a big deal about it because it's probably, they don't want cats at the grocery store or Costco.
Not even just the grocery store, just any kind of place where there's air conditioning. if we just wanted to escape the heat for a couple hours, we can do that because we have these soft backpacks, and they're sort of discreet if you train them so they're not meowing, making a loud noise, or like moving around a lot in there. They could just chill, relax in there. They can like take a nap while you're inside. Like we could go into a mall and just hang out. Go to the food court, get something to eat.
Just put them under a table and just
have them be there with us in the air-conditioned space.
And don't interact with them.
Yeah.
Just pretend they're just like backpack of stuff. But it's also a lot of people that do leash training or walk with their cats without a leash also train them to go in the backpack in case there's danger. So they'll walk around with an empty backpack. The cats feel comfortable enough to go in there, but we don't have our cats to that level of trust with the backpack, so we don't treat them that way.
They're not running in there when there's danger.
No. Unless
they're running to us.
Unless there's a vet with a vaccine, then they're running in the backpack. But besides that,
we don't have one of those crazy like clear bubble glass, plexiglass things. But you know, if you have the room for that, and if your cat likes something like that, you can even put them in one of those and go for hikes or something like that. But you know, for us, we don't have one of those, mostly because that's not as discreet when you want to take them into a shopping mall or a grocery store.
And we're cheap, and our cat backpacks, we don't have like a fancy brand to share with you, but I'll put a link of what we did buy. It's just whatever the cheapest one was, and it works for us.
Sometimes we'll put them in that if, you know, we're talking a little bit more about border crossings and stuff, or if somebody has to open the door to like look inside or something, you know, we don't want them to just kind of run out. Yeah. And we also don't want them to go hide in case the guy pulls up a comforter and sees something in there. Yeah. So, you know, this kind of goes with driving as well.
This is a big one because the cats, like we said, were super feral, and they didn't know what a car was. You know, they didn't know what a house was. So
they know rocks and grass.
Lizards.
Grasshoppers.
So the first time we had them in the car, they're just totally anxious, trying to escape. So they would run to the beds, to the kitchen. They were just jumping everywhere. It was not safe.
Trying to find a hole that they can like bore through to get out.
And so what I did is I had to keep them in backpacks, and I kept them on my lap or the kid's lap so Dan can focus on driving and not worry about a cat jumping on him and scratching him. And then I let them out, and if they were okay and calm, I leave them out. But if not, I put them right back in. And after like a day or two of driving, they settle down. They would either sit on the bed or on the kid's lap or under the kid's bench seat. And then as they got more comfortable, they went to the front of the van. So then it just didn't take that long for feral cats to get used to it. So a house cat, I can't imagine taking much longer, but it depends on the personality.
Our old cat Yoda, though, didn't ever really like sitting out. No. She preferred to be in a small, confined, dark space that felt safer for her.
We had a hard cat carrier for her, but we don't have space in our current setup for our cat carrier inside of our cab area, so that wouldn't work. But now the boy sits on my lap. He wants to be held like a baby. The female wants to sit on the center console. We built the center console, right? She just sits for her with a cat bed for that. Yeah. So now they're fine.
And Toby now has decided that the cat bed on the center console is big enough for both of their 11-pound butts.
And so whenever they hear the car turn on and we're all inside, somebody asked me the other day, like, "Oh, aren't you scared the cats are in the engine when you start it?" We never start the car without
knowing where they are.
Without they are. Just like we pop the hood and look for them. We'll get to like hiding spots, but so when we turn on the car, we're all inside already. They hear the hum. They know to get into their spots. So the cats will right away jump in the front. And when we took them on their first airplane ride, we were really scared how they were going to do. But as soon as that airplane turned on, they settled down just like in the van, like that rumbling sound. And it was so funny. And they did fine on a 9-hour flight. So
once you have your cats conditioned to drive in a car, to be on a leash, to come back when you need them, and you have trackers set up, then you got to figure out where are the places that you feel comfortable going. And maybe you'll get more and more comfortable over time once you accomplish more of these different steps of training your cat. But start with campgrounds that you're familiar with. Campgrounds where you know the conditions are right. So for us, you know, the way that we pick campgrounds has a lot to do with several things. One, proximity to busy roads. 2, access to like shrubbery, bushes, or trees where they can go hide in if something is scary. And 3, like how many other pets, dogs, cats, neighborhood predators, predators are around in the area. So those are all things that we consider. You know, same thing goes for wild camping. You know, so some places in the wild, the cats don't really like because it's too wide open.
Yeah.
There's no place for them to hide. So if we're at a place like that and then we see like the edge of a lake bed, for example, maybe there's some hills and shrubbery, then we'll kind of drive towards that so they can go hide in there if something's not right.
Yeah.
Usually campgrounds, bigger campgrounds that aren't like one next to another, usually the campgrounds are pretty good as long as there's no busy streets.
Yeah. And then when we get to that campground that we think would be the best fit for us, then we determine, are they going to be loose? Is it safe for them? Or are they going to be on a leash? Which type of tracker? Or am I putting on both trackers?
Yeah, see if you have phone service.
Yeah. So there's a lot of like little things that we're constantly calculating. There's like, it's not the same thing each time we get to a campsite. It's always, there's so many variables and you're trying to make the best decision for the cats and for yourself. And
a lot of the times we go back to campgrounds or stay longer at campgrounds because it's good for the cats.
if it's good for the cats, it's good for us because then we have a more relaxing time. If we can find a place the cats are happy and they're not on leash and there's dogs chasing them.
Because when they're on leash, there's at least one, if not two of us, have to be on leash watch, cat watch, right? So that gives us an extra job.
Yeah.
If we didn't have to do that, maybe the campground's a little bit more expensive or not quite as nice as another one, but it's good for the cats. It's still an overall win.
Yeah. Which seems crazy to say, but yeah.
Sacrifices.
Yeah.
The thing that I always said at the beginning when we decided to adopt these cats that has become a saying in our family is pros and cons. Yeah. Everything is pros and cons.
Pros and cons.
Think about the pros and cons.
And if we're at a campsite where we're in a city or in some situation where we're parked close to people, like a good surf spot, the cats are going to be inside or on leash and it's going to suck. But the next campsite, we're going to make a priority that they can stretch out.
Yeah.
And because if they're stuck inside and they're on leash, they get frustrated and the male gets more aggressive.
Yeah, and they get destructive.
So it's like and then we're frustrated too because we're on watch and dealing with their frustration, and it's just like snowball effect. So the next campground for sure is like, okay, we're gonna chill somewhere. The cats are free. We're gonna.
So they can handle a couple of days at a place where they have to be on a leash. Mm-hmm. It's a give and take, pros and cons for them too, because maybe we want to go to this place. It has something that we want to do. Like we want to walk around this town. We want to go surfing. Yeah. We want to be in the city or whatever. Those are the couple of days where we have an extra job to look after them. Yeah. But after that, we give them some place that they like going to.
Because it's equivalent to like rainy days and you're in a camper. Like you can handle it for a day or two, but then the next spot, where we're driving where there's no rain and we can stretch out again. Same thing for cats.
Yeah, and also them being a little destructive. You'll find out as cats that they like to scratch on things. And having scratching pad that's not totally worn out is important, but also they're going to end up finding things around the camper that they're going to try to destroy. Our experience has been, for the boy cat, Toby, it was my steering wheel. Yeah, steering wheel and any kind of foam, like boogie boards,
Nerf footballs,
yoga mats.
Yeah.
Yeah, he really liked to destroy those, shred them up, and even eat pieces of it.
But the steering wheel, he'd like ride it like a bucking bronco and just attack it and just like, can you imagine?
Dig his nails into the leather.
I'm like, how much is a Mercedes steering wheel? We can't have this thing destroyed.
Yeah. So I had started buying steering wheel covers, and he would shred up the steering wheel covers. So I went through like 3 or 4 steering wheel covers in like 6 months. And then what ended up fixing it for me is I bought this huge, like 4-inch diameter, like fireman hose, basically from the home improvement store. Yeah. And I cut it to the right length, and I slid the inside apart so it could open. And I used that to wrap around the steering wheel when we're not driving. Yeah. And then that's got him to stop.
So if you ever see photos or meet us in person and you see a bright yellow thing around our steering wheel,
that's Toby.
That's for Toby.
That's for Toby. And Twin, the girl cat, on the other hand, discovered that our headliner is really fun to scratch.
Yeah, it is tore up. Like she loves it in the middle of the night. She'll just look at you and just start scratching. We couldn't get her to stop, but like squirt bottle, yelling, pushing her away, you can't stop her.
No. So there's so much of it too.
Yeah. So we built like little pockets out of fabric that she does not like to scratch. Luckily,
it's not fun to scratch because it's denier nylon, so it's kind of slippery. Yeah. Her nails can't dig in. So
she stopped doing that. Every once in a while, she'll go in a space where it's not covered.
Yeah. So if you have the option to choose the fabric, find something that isn't like fun to poke at, fun to scratch. I think our friends have 4-wheel campers. They say their cat really loves the thermal pack. on their soft walls.
Yeah.
You know, so
And just like the
consider
cats,
that.
we don't trim their nails because they're wild outside, and I want them to be able to protect themselves and climb trees. But just like they wake up in the morning and then they're just stretching on the captain chair in the front of the van, and just they're not trying to scratch, but there's just like their nails come out
when they stretch.
So I noticed like little holes in our fabric, and people. We drive so much and we live in our car full time. People are like, "Oh, you guys should upgrade to those fancy Schulman seats. They're so worth it. I know they're like $4,000, but the comfort." I'm like, do you see these two cats?
Yeah.
Just by stretching will just. I'm not having the cats destroy Schulman seats.
Yeah,
so
seat covers.
That's
Seat cover is the extent that we'll go, but we just haven't found good seat covers.
We covered them for a while when we felt like they were like going to be destructive, but we stopped.
Mostly because they already look pretty bad.
Maybe we just gave up.
Yeah, it's true.
So do we have a litter box in our campers?
People always ask if we have litter box. I mean, if you're gonna have a cat in your camper, there is no getting around having a litter box, except if you're gonna have a way for the cats to freely go in and out of your camper, which I don't recommend. If you're gonna at any point close the doors, like when you're going to sleep at night, where the cats can't go out, then you have to have a litter box. With every camper that we had, we've always dedicated a spot for a litter box.
Yeah. And it's depending on the camper we had. Sometimes it was out of the way, and sometimes it was totally in the way, and there's nothing you can do. But in the U.S., we try to find a good litter that doesn't stink up the whole, because we're in a little space. So if anything's perfumed, it just intensifies.
Yeah.
So we use like World's Best Litter when we lived in the
Target
U.S.
one was really good.
Yeah, and then we sprinkle baking soda. But now that we're international and we change countries so often, there's zero consistency with anything.
The imported litter that we like that probably come from the U.S. is really expensive.
Like
and we're talking like a box,
like
pretty heavy, like a 20-pound box is like $60.
Yeah, so we're like, no, we're gonna.
But they do sell local stuff, but it's just that cheap like clay stuff that doesn't clump.
It's really dusty. But
it's dusty.
Yeah, we
you just have to change it more often.
Yeah, so we have a litter box. We keep it underneath in a cabinet that has an access hole. That's actually next to our toilet, so the cats can go in there any time of day or night. We didn't buy a regular litter box. We went to IKEA and we bought a tall, like 12-inch high walled plastic bin.
And then we just don't use the lid, and then we cut a corner of it
Half
a little
bit
lower. So that's the corner that's facing the outside, so they come in and out of that. And you want the walls to be a little bit high too, because when they're trying to dig and bury, they're going to kick some of that litter out. So if you have the litter box, that's why when you buy these litter boxes from the pet supply store, there's a lid usually.
Yeah.
So when they're scratching, the stuff they kick up doesn't just go everywhere. So as an alternative to that, you just buy the walls kind of high.
Yeah, if you have room for the top, that's great, but in our current camper, we don't.
Yeah.
And another reason is when you put those two pieces together of the litter box and there's like a seam where it connects, our cats were peeing through that seam, and there was cat pee every few days, and we couldn't handle it. So our alternative was to buy a tall plastic container and make our own litter box.
And it's cheaper.
Yeah.
Usually it's cheaper. And it's also, there's more different options when it comes to size. So if you're trying to build something that fits a specific space in your camper, trying to find a plastic, like a Rubbermaid bin is probably, will give you more options.
Yeah. And people ask, does it smell? It really depends on what they're eating. So if I'm in a country where it's easy to buy high-end kibble and wet food, then their poop does not smell. But as soon as we start going international and there's not a lot of choices, and I'm feeding them high grain or some Whiskas brand, then I notice it smells. And especially when Twin goes to the bathroom at 4 a.m. One time, the propane detector that's right next to our litter box went off because she took the stinkiest poo, and we woke up thinking we're all going to die from propane.
Yeah, we thought the propane was leaking.
But it was Twin's big dump.
And the second that we scooped out her poop,
Yeah. So if they're on a bad diet or they ate some kind of weird thing outside, some creature, sometimes they catch mice and lizards, I'd have to get up at 4 a.m. whenever they do their business, scoop it into like a little doggy bag or whatever and put it in our trash bag. But other times I can just clean it once a day whenever I want to on a high protein diet.
Yeah, so food and water and how you feed your pet is basically up to you. It's what's available to you, what your budget is, what your cat likes. all of those factor into whether or not you feed your cat a certain diet or not. For us, it was easier to find good quality food in the U.S. There's more cat owners. Cats don't seem to be, outside of Europe and U.S. or Western Europe and U.S., cats just don't seem to be treated as pets very much. They seem to just be like, it's like a tool that catches
More barn cat.
barn cats, catches mice and snakes or whatever on a farm. So, there's less people that have cats as pets, so there's less reason to have various options of pet food. But for us, we'll go to, if we really wanted to, we can go to a town that has a lot of U.S. expats or immigrants, that have cats, and then usually at the veterinarian's office.
Yeah, and
they'll have higher quality stuff.
And you're going to pay for it.
It's going to be expensive.
It's imported, and so you have to make those kind of decisions.
Yeah, the alternative is you can also make your own food out of just, human grade food.
And that's what we did for a while. We did a raw, instead of wet food, we just buy the best kibble we could, and instead of buying wet food, we do raw food, and we had supplements that we can add to it. If
you do raw food, you have to, this is not by any means a comprehensive way to make raw food, but you want to include like different parts of the meat. Yeah.
You find
organs,
recipe online.
The hearts, the livers, the bones even, and skins in the meat. And then you don't want to feed them certain types of meat. Like I think pork is bad for cats.
And then you have the vitamins and like the salmon oil and make it a balanced meal. But and it worked for us because we have a Dometic refrigerator.
Yeah, dual zone. We can keep one as a freezer.
Yeah, but it's a lot of work too. And then you have a small work area with raw meat and 2 cats and 3 kids. And
a lot of the times you're gonna need like a heavy duty, high power blender to really mash up the bones and cartilage because you want to include some bones in there.
Yeah.
So that could be really hard. And for a while we were freezing it and we were like hand chopping it with a knife.
Yeah. So,
that just took a lot of effort.
Yeah, we made it work in Europe, and then it was not worth the effort for our lifestyle. Because our life is crazy in the amount of in our small camper compared to like house life. So we had to give that up for now.
Yeah, and as far as water, you just have to be careful. This pretty much goes the same with people too. Like cats can probably handle more different types of water internationally than people can. So for example, like Mexico or most of Central America and Mexico, you're not supposed to drink the tap water for people, but I'm sure our cats did. But at the same time, the thing that you want to look out for in water is that if there's water that has high levels of chlorine or calcium, that could be bad for the cats. It could be bad for their kidneys. It could give them kidney problems. So in places where you know that's the case, and you know that because if you see a lot of calcium buildup on like
their water bowl
right
or
just like shower faucets, sink faucets, that's high calcium. So you're going to want to try to filter some of that calcium out and have that primary. They're going to drink the water that they find anyways, but the main source of water that you give them, if you can kind of lower that calcium level, will be better.
Give them what you drink. So we keep their food and water out all day, dry food and kibble, and we have it on the counter, and we have it in a silicone holder so it doesn't move, and it's together. The boy likes to put his hand in the kibbles and basically feed himself one kibble at a time.
He doesn't eat it out of the bowl. He likes to pull it out of the bowl so it's on the whatever surface that the bowl is sitting on, and they eat it from there. Yeah,
and then the girl cat, twin, she likes to put her hand in the water and make waves before she drinks. So you can imagine water bowl in the middle of the night or in the food bowl, and the cats are just slipping all over the place, making a mess. So we bought silicone holders. I think it was for a small dog, and it keeps it contained. And
we still get some water splashing out or some kibbles falling off, but for the most part, nothing gets flipped over anymore. Yeah. But, we were saying earlier that we don't feed the cats until when it's time for them to come back. But kibbles are fine. They're not as crazy over kibbles. Like, we'll give them wet food, which is what they're primarily interested in, so that if they're hungry during the day, they can get a couple of kibbles if they want. But they're conditioned to know that, when we're calling them in, the sun's about to go down, it's time to get wet food, which is, what motivates them to come back.
And I scream the same, who's hungry? I'm not going to say it too loud because they're going to come running.
Yeah,
I yell, who's hungry? Or I used to use a clicker, and they know, okay, it's getting dark. I need to come in and eat. And sometimes they're in. Toby, the male, that's food motivated. He's in within 3 seconds. I think I easy. She takes her time, and when she's in, we're in for the night. and they're not going to go outside, because if I feed them and let them out again, there's no way these cats are going to come back.
We're staying in the night.
Yeah, so that's our routine, and it's consistent. They eat dinner, the door's closed, they're done for the night. I take off their collars. Everybody's just settling down. And another reason I leave dry kibble out during the day and night, because I notice if I don't leave kibble out for them during the night, there's destruction and craziness.
Yeah.
But if they're like, oh, I'm just going to eat a little bit and go back to bed, then they're fine. So those are just for our cats that works.
Yeah, every cat's different. So maybe it would work for you. So if you're experiencing a lot of ruckus in the middle of the night,
Yeah.
here's a couple of things you can try.
Yeah.
Leave some dry food out. So maybe they're just hungry. Maybe they're just bored.
Yeah.
Right? So they just want something to do. Having some dry kibble might just satisfy that craving. The difficult thing about having your cats in a camper compared to having them in a house is that your camper is going to different places, and different places mean different climates, and also different campgrounds means you may have electric hookups, you may not. Maybe you have an air conditioner in your camper, maybe you don't. Maybe you have plenty of batteries to run fans all day, maybe you don't. So having good temperature control for your cat when you're leaving them, especially, or just when you're at a campground, is really important.
So there's a few different things that we do. When we travel, we're usually weather dependent. So we try to follow, especially when we're in the U.S. And partially in Europe, we try to follow like 72 degree.
Yeah, like we try to go
spot.
north. We go north in the summer and then go south in the winter.
From the U.S.
Down
now we're in Central America, getting closer to the equator, and there's no
place to be warm except you can go to high elevation. We're at 3,500 feet right now, but it still gets to the 90s during the day.
Yeah,
it gets to like the high 60s at night, low 70s. So it's still not comfortable necessarily to be out all the time. And this is March, right? This is the beginning of March. This is about, well, I wouldn't say it's as cool as it's going to get, because they have rainy seasons and dry seasons, and the rainy season can actually get cooler because the rain cools it down. But it is pretty much this temperature year round.
Yeah. So we can't follow that sweet 72 degree spot like we usually do. But even on like slightly hotter days or colder days, you need to have a plan.
Yeah. So good insulation in your camper if you don't already have that. And if you don't have that, find ways to be able to improve that insulation, and have airflow. It's really important. If you have big windows where sun can come through, figure out ways to kind of add insulation to those windows, because not having sun come through or shine directly through a piece of glass, that really affects the internal temperature of the camper. And your windshield, having a big, like our Sprinter van has a big front windshield, and if the sun is coming right over the front and they're coming right through the windshield, that's a big amount of heat coming through. Well, we found that we have 3 different ways. So we want to be able to block that window so people can't look inside, especially at night when the lights are on. We're just inside doing whatever. So we have a curtain that we made on the inside so that the cats can still go on the dash and sit by the window at night and look out, because that's what they like to do. But during the day, when we don't want them on the dash, we can put up like a Reflectix layer on the inside of the windshield in an attempt to insulate and block some of that heat out. But what we found work even better is to get a window cover that goes on the outside of the windshield, so the heat never even hits the glass in the first place.
Yeah.
That's the best heat insulating option for our particular purpose.
Yeah, we didn't really see it in that U.S., but it was it was very popular in Europe. So we'll put the link to.
Yeah, the one we have is pretty cheap.
It's cheap and it works great.
It works great. I don't know how durable it is. We have a snorkel in our van, so we have to modify a little bit to get it to fit. But they do make them for basically every kind of vehicle out there: trucks, vans, Mercedes, Dodge, Ford, Chevy, whatever.
Okay, so we cover our windows. It's going to make a huge difference. And then we also have 2 fantastic fans on the roof, on the ceiling, that we can change the direction. So it can blow in, blow out. If we have the windows cracked, it can just all these different ways depending on the situation.
We can tell if the cats are sitting on the dash at night. We'll have the front windows cracked. We have these little metal screens that we can close the window up on the driver and passenger side windows. And that'll keep the inside of the vehicle secure when doors and windows are locked and closed, but it'll still let airflow come in. If we have those in and the fan sucking air out, causing wind to come through, the cats are comfortable in the front on the dash all night. And if we forget to put that on, the front windows are closed, there's no airflow in the front, then we notice them coming back to lay with us on our beds at night. So, having good airflow and just having that kind of circular motion, places where air gets exhausted, if your vehicle is well sealed, meaning that, when you have air blowing out of one fan, that means air has to come in from whatever other spaces that are available. So if you just have like a little bit of window that's cracked and have air blowing out, you're going to have a very good amount of airflow coming through those cracks. And that's where the cats like to sit too. Right next to our beds, we have these little windows that we can kind of crack open like a quarter, half an inch. And if the cats are feeling too hot, they'll just go sit on that right on the window ledge and then just stay there all night.
And if it's really hot, we also bought some of those cool mats that have like a gel in it. So we can put it actually in the refrigerator to get them actually colder. But just naturally, they're colder than, they feel cooler than the air temp. So I put them out and the cats just went on them right away. It was like, I thought I had to somehow train them and I didn't even know how I was going to do this. But they just like, boop, I got two and they laid on
They
them.
know.
I guess they feel it and they're smart.
It's like, even here, we're at this Airbnb and they have this this wooden floor. Yeah, when they get hot, you can tell they go to the cool part of the floor, whether it's tile or
concrete
or hardwood or concrete or whatever.
Shade,
they avoid the couch, the chair, and then the rugs. So they know, okay, this feels better. I'm gonna lay on that. And also park in the shade, obviously.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, parking in the shade's good for temperature control, but it's bad for solar, bad for Starlink.
Yeah.
So you really have to figure out, like, how do you stay at a place and be able to sustain your life on the road with all these different things that you have to worry about.
Or even if we're going on a hike for 2 hours and we're like, okay, let's park in the shade. Well, it's shady now, but where is the sun going to be in an hour or two during our hike? So we have to kind of look at where the sun's going to go and then position the car for maximum shade while we're away.
Yeah. And have some way to be able to know that, the fan's going to stay on, right, while you're gone. So we have added some kind of smart controls. I have a Wi-Fi router that connects to all the different smart controls that are in the van. And there's also some temperature and humidity sensors that I have set up in the van. So as long as those sensors are connected to the router and the router is connected to the internet, whether it be the campground Wi-Fi or if you leave your phone there for a hotspot and then use your other phone to check, you can detect the temperature and the humidity of the van, of the camper. So this is kind of an involved project, but I'll put the link to some of the stuff that I've used to build this in the description below. And then, I have a video that I'm going to make too that shows more in depth how something like this works. So this gives us a peace of mind that, okay, it's not 100 degrees in there.
Yeah.
We can check. And if that feed suddenly goes away, the internet goes out, okay, then we know, okay, if we don't feel comfortable, if it's getting too hot, let's go back to the van and check on them.
And that's really important also, like that would have been helpful in the early days when we had Yoda in the Airstream trailer. We were mostly in campgrounds in the beginning and we left the AC on for her. But we also cracked the windows and we left our fantastic fans running as well because we were scared, what if the air conditioning fails?
What if the power to the campground goes out because the AC only worked off of shore power,
and
whereas the fan worked on battery?
And then the windows are cracked, so there's circulation. But now we don't even have AC option, and we have fantastic fans. But the thing is, a lot of these fans can have like fancy options where it turns off like a rain sensor.
Yeah.
And if there's humidity and
condensation,
which there's a lot of in our van if we're not careful, and it closes those fantastic vents, and the cats are in the car with no circulation at all. Yeah. Like it's just a really good peace of mind to have those something like Dan said, so you can read the text.
So we actually prefer the dumber fans where everything's manual. When we turn the fan on, it stays on until we turn it off.
So we do have a rain sensor, but we disabled it.
Yeah, we just, it's not that these things don't work if you're around. Like they work well. If you forget, they'll close when it gets wet. So the way that it's designed, they may close when you don't want them to, but they won't stay open when it's raining.
Yeah.
Right? So it'll keep the water outside of your camper, which is what the goal is. But at the same time, if you're not around and that fan needs to be on to circulate air.
You have a cat or dog in the car.
Yeah,
so it's just something to think about. Let's say we do all those things and it's still not cool enough and we don't feel comfortable. Well,
you always have hotels and Airbnbs.
Pros and cons.
Yeah.
Like if it's too hot, we skip it.
Unfortunately, that's just the pros and cons. That's a choice you have to make. You may not be able to go do things. Like we couldn't go to Tikal in Guatemala.
Yeah.
Because number one, they don't allow pets at the campground nearby, and number two, we don't have air conditioning, and we couldn't leave the cats inside the van while we're walking around and checking out the ruins.
Yeah. So we had to just be okay with not going to that. But then some places we can time shift. We can go really early in the morning, or we can do a sunset hike instead of a middle of a day thing that we usually do.
Which might be better anyways for crowd reasons.
Yeah.
So you want to go when other people aren't there. And if it's summertime and it's really hot, the busiest time is going to most likely be like warmer parts of the day anyways.
And sometimes we can bring them with us when we're doing something. And that's why we have those backpacks.
Yeah.
We can take them to the mall or the grocery store, or we can take them on a hike with us also.
Some places are allowed, like hikes. Some places they don't care. Some places they just don't know. And there are going to be places where you just shouldn't do it because it's, you know, strictly prohibited.
Another big thing is, how do you keep the cats in when you need them to stay in? You know?
Yeah.
So
Cats aren't like dogs.
So if you
Obviously.
ever camp next to us or seen a video of ours and one of us is on the outside of the van, instead of just opening the sliding door, you always see us knocking.
Yeah.
And we're not knocking because we don't know how to open a door, right?
Or for just being extra polite.
Yeah, we're not being polite. It's to let somebody know we're coming in, grab the cats. They're not supposed to be outside. So as soon as that happens, everybody is on alert.
Looking for cats. So
Okay.
we've been conditioned to do that. When
Every time-
somebody's knocking, where are the cats? So we were staying at a friend's place. We were house sitting at a friend's place the other day, and we decided to go to the beach with the van, and we decided, you know, it's safer to leave them behind at the house. And we did an overnight at a beach, and every time we opened the door, we still checked to see if the cats were around because we're conditioned.
Yeah,
But
we're still knocking.
you know,
There was no cats for that night.
that's better than having a cat just run out and disappear for 3 days
Yeah.
when you're only supposed to be there for one night.
But when we do open and they're like, we're all in the grocery store, we obviously can't knock. So we open the door and then we have a command. We try to say, stay, stay. So then they hear that and they see our hands and they don't move. I mean, in the beginning they might have,
You can
but
kind
I
of
trust.
tell if they are really agitated or trying to like, or been cooped up for too long.
Yeah.
You can tell when they're going to maybe bolt.
Yeah.
But usually at these grocery store trips, you know, we just came from a campground. Maybe they were just out roaming around. So we can tell when they're not going to do it, and we don't have to like really hold on to them. We can just kind of put our hand in front of them and say, don't go.
Yeah.
And they know in a parking lot with a bunch of cars driving by, with a bunch of strangers walking
yeah.
around, it's not the kind of place they want to go out and explore.
Of course, they've bolted. I can just count maybe 2 or 3 times.
Yeah.
And every time they
Bannock Ghost Town in Montana.
Well, that was because Twin was eyeing a bunny for an hour, and then you gave her the opportunity to go for it. But in general, if there's no thing to chase and they just jump out of the van, they're not bolting. They're just standing right next to you, so you just pick them up and then...
I had to go run after her because the Bannock Ghost Town is an old mining ghost town in Montana, and they were closing. We had like minutes before we had to be out of there, and there was no option for us to stay there. So I had to run after her, and then she really did. When I got her, she was really mad at me, and she like
scratched
nail came out, like gouged me really deep. So that was not fun. But that's that's an extreme example of what could happen and what the consequences of something like that happening when you don't pay attention. Yeah. When you do just let the door open and then they see a bunny and go after it. By the way, they've never caught a bunny ever. I don't think they would even know what to do because some of these bunnies are bigger than them.
But they'll keep trying.
Yeah.
And then if it's hot, we have bug screens, and when we need circulation. And when they're loose, they figured out how to go in and out from under the bug screen, or it's a magnet and they can kind of push their way through. But sometimes when I need them leashed up, when I need them inside and the bug screen and all their doors open for circulation, I do sometimes have to put their leashes on in the car, which is, it's like Mission Impossible with the laser beams, and it's so annoying, but...
Yeah, I think the leashes near things that can get tangled up easily in general is always a hassle, but usually it's a necessary evil. We're doing it because we have to, because we're trying to avoid some other circumstance.
Yeah, and it's a rare thing. And speaking of leashes, we never talked about what kind of leash.
Retractable.
Yeah, we started off with just a the regular fabric one. And I see some people buy super long ones and they leave it on the ground and they can just grab the leash when they need to. But we have retractable leashes.
25 feet, I think they go out to.
Yeah, the max. And that works
it's good
great
for
for
walking
us.
them because unlike a dog, they won't just walk alongside of you the whole time.
Yeah.
They want to go far out. They want to go explore this and explore that. So you can just you can pull out all the way 25 feet and then like lock it at 25 feet, or you can have it be retractable. So as they go out, it goes out, and as they come back, it kind of retracts.
Really important thing to remember is you're never walking a cat. They're walking you.
Yeah.
So if they're hunting or just sitting or they want to run, you just...
They want to go here, then you're going here.
You can't control them like a dog, unless you have some super cat that has a fancy Instagram account.
But if we have to, we tug on them, because it's not tugging on their collar, it's tugging on their harness.
Yeah.
So they kind of get lifted up, and then you can sort of, after some training, you can sort of redirect them and get their interest to be pointed somewhere else.
Yeah, redirecting is easy now.
Yeah. But again, that comes with time.
Okay, so having cats, we have to deal with predators a lot. Or worrying about predators. So like we said earlier, it could be other dogs, other cats. It could be in the Americas, it's coyotes we really have to worry about.
Bobcats, mountain lions.
Yeah, there's a lot of stray dogs, now that we're south or in Eastern Europe.
They've not ever been in danger that we know of. We've at times been afraid because we didn't know where they were. But most of the time, they've been pretty good. They never even had to like climb a tree to hide from a predator.
Maybe a few, there's a lot of times at campgrounds,
Like
my
dogs.
dogs love cats.
Yeah.
Its best friend is a cat. And then 2 seconds later, it's just like a chase and a fight, and Toby's up the tree and he's limping. So that happens a lot. So every time somebody says, oh, my dog is fine, you can't trust, because you don't know, our cats are totally different than your cat at home. You can't say that.
Yeah.
And it causes a disaster
cat that they know
for us.
is different than a foreign cat. As much as it's a bummer, I do appreciate it when somebody says, "Oh, my dog likes to chase cats."
Yeah, I
or
like
my
the
dog
heads
will
up.
if they catch a cat, they'll kill it.
Yeah, and so
Or
we
they
know
have killed cats before or something.
And so we adjust our plan based on
circumstances, what happens where we are.
Yeah.
Like we were saying earlier, in Europe, we didn't have to worry about it as much because Europe has been habitated by humans for so long, and they've unfortunately depleted a lot of the natural resources. So there are no coyotes, there are no mountain lions, there are not a lot of there's not a lot of just wildlife predators.
It's just dogs we had to worry about, and cars.
And then in this one peninsula in Croatia, there are these
hyenas.
There are these hyena type, they're not really coyotes or wolves, but you hear them at night.
Yeah.
They're howling and they're communicating with each other. But they're smaller, and we were at one camping place where we thought, we were getting a little close.
And the cats heard the howling, and it was dinner time, and they jumped in, and they're like,
so one of our cat, the girl, well, she's much more risk averse. She doesn't feel right, she'll just come back. If something scares her, she'll just come back. If something is chasing after her, she'll just run away. Toby, on the other hand, is a fighter. Toby wants to stand up, defend, go after things that are threatening, which can work to his disadvantage. If it gets really bad, but it's never gotten.
He's territorial of the van, so if another cat or dog comes around our van, he will pop up and charge.
Yeah, and he'll defend his sister too, even though they don't, at their age now, they don't play with each other as much as they used to.
So if there is danger, that's when being at it, and they're free, or even on leash, it just depends. If they're free, we've made decisions at the campground. Oh, we're parked by a tree, bushes where they can hide. We leave the door cracked. Even if it's cold, we'll leave the door cracked so they can jump in if they need to. But on the outside of the van, we have a skid plate underneath our engine to protect whatever carb thing it protects.
Transmission. We have a transmission skid plate.
Oh yeah, I'm overland of the year. Okay. And twin sleeps on that skid plate, and if something's really scary, they go up into the engine and they have a safe spot that they can hide and protect themselves from. We also have a ladder on the side of our car. In the beginning, Toby would climb that ladder.
He hasn't done that in a while.
There's a video, we can put here, but
he learned how to climb ladders.
Yeah, so he can go on the roof if he needs to. But those are if there is a predator around, there's safe spaces for them.
And the thing is, they will figure out where those places are if those are available in your camper. As cats do, they always go under car and look and see if there are places to go hide. Even inside the camper, they'll find places that they want to go hide. They want to go
in the garage,
in the back corner, underneath the bed, and go hide underneath. We don't want them to go there because that's where the battery and the electrical system is.
Yeah. So predators also, sometimes they are the predators.
Yeah.
And so even on leash,
cats are by nature hunters, right? So
Yeah,
there's
especially
not a lot
these
you can
ones.
do.
Yeah.
There's not a lot you can do to kind of keep them from doing that. We try to discourage them when we see them, like, going
Hunting.
after like birds and bigger
Yeah.
prey or things that are outside of just like bugs and lizards
Yeah.
and
So
mice. They'll catch bugs, lizards, and mice all day, and sometimes frogs.
yeah, and you're so surprised. Like I'll put Toby on a leash, I'll jump out of the car, and within 30 seconds, there's a bush right next to our car, and he has a mouse in his mouth. Like you don't realize
How many they're around you all the time?
how many rodents are around you. You're just like oblivious to
Yeah.
it, and they're just like. And the thing with our cats is they'll bring it back to eat it or mess with it underneath the van. So if we can catch it early enough, we'll let it free. But sometimes, especially Twin, she likes to bring her catch and put it on our bed and mess with it. So we've never had a mouse or lizard in our van unless a cat has brought it to mess with. Yeah.
She's not bringing them to us like it's a gift like some cats do. She's bringing them so that she can have a fun thing to play with.
In an enclosed space.
Yeah, safe space where she can not have to be on alert. But yeah, so the only things that they've caught have been bugs, rodents, and frogs.
Yeah, they've tried to catch turkey vultures and full-size iguanas down here, and I don't even know what else, but so far it's just
none of those things. They've gotten close enough to catching, because I think once they get close enough, they'll realize it's a bad idea. So lastly, we want to talk about specifically to our lifestyle, international travel. So if you're traveling just within your own country, then this is less of a problem for you, and I hope the things that we talked about have sufficed. But as we are international travelers, overland travelers, we're doing a lot of border crossings. And in Europe, it wasn't such a big deal because within the Schengen zone, there are no border crossings. You go from country to country, just like the States and the US. No border checks. But we had to do border crossing in Morocco. We had to do border crossing outside the Schengen when we go to Bosnia, Albania, and Turkey. All these different places, you usually have to do something differently when you bring pets in. Dogs, cats, birds, I assume, whatever you bring with you.
Yeah.
Every country has its own different set of rules. So you kind of have to do some research to figure that out. The most extensive thing we've had to do are things like health certificates. In some countries require to have official health certificates signed by the
government agency.
Government, yeah.
Right.
It's usually like the farm or agricultural department of the government, or like customs department of the government. They have to look through the documents and give you like an official paper with a stamp. But a lot of the countries that require that only require it when you fly in and out by air, or through an airport customs. Land crossings are sometimes different, and they're often different. So before you go through all the hassle of doing that for a particular land crossing, see if it's necessary. Because we know that going out of Guatemala, either into Belize or to Mexico, it's much stricter going that direction than the other way around. So just because you've done a crossing one way doesn't mean coming the other way is going to be the same.
And just the basics, like get your cat microchipped. I didn't realize there's two different versions. So our old cat Yoda had a domestic microchip with just a few numbers. When we switched her to international, I had to give her, she had 2 microchips because I needed an international one. And get your rabies and get your triple feline and parasites, because they're going to catch that mouse. We get them their parasites, internal, external parasites, and have it all documented. We have a passport book that we got from Croatia, from the EU. And we just, even though we're not in the EU now, I just keep track there. And the vet in Mexico was fine with it, and the vet in Guatemala was fine, just kept adding health certificates. And we got a rabies teeter test done in Europe too, that some countries require. If you're over there and go to Turkey and you come back into the EU, you're going to need a proof of that. So these are all little things you just have to do research, and it's annoying. The iOverlander app has a tick box and Park for Night also for pets, and so you can read
veterinarians that work with pets.
It's just like, okay, I'm crossing the border, and it'll tell you how to cross the border. And a lot of people say, well, I crossed with a pet, and this is the paperwork they asked for, and you can be prepared that way.
Yeah, so for example, we're in Costa Rica right now, and then here they're having some kind of screwworm outbreak that's not typical. So there could be temporary restrictions too, based on what kind of outbreaks are happening. So you want to make sure that when you go there, that you don't just rely on your previous experience.
Yeah.
You want to look at what's up to date, what's current, and maybe there's additional vaccinations that are necessary.
Yeah, so really helpful to be up to date with the iOverlander app and Facebook groups too, where people share experiences.
So that's it. That's a lot of stuff that we've given you about traveling with cats. And a lot of this applies to dogs too, but you know, it's different. When we had a dog, we didn't travel this way.
Yeah.
So we don't have a ton of experience on that. But when it comes to cats, I think a lot more people have questions about whether or not it's possible to travel with cats. And we're here to tell you for sure. And the kind of traveling that we've done with our cats is far, far, far exceed what is required for you to be able to travel with your own cats in your own country. So by seeing what we're able to do with these two cats who are feral, wants to be outside, if you're just somebody who's got an indoor cat that you want to take camping with you, I don't see any reason why you shouldn't be able to bring them. So if you have any questions that we didn't cover, hopefully we covered most of them, if not all of them, you can ask them in the comments below. I hope you guys give taking your cats out camping a try next time you're planning a trip. Thanks as always for watching. We'll see you guys in the next video.